having, just like you would with an EA, authorizing the agent to book on your behalf. That's what the product does. And because of advancements in Gen AI and the ability to, pull a calendar data, look at previous trips, previous itineraries, matching up again itineraries with meetings on calendars to know what are those repeat sales meetings, quarterly reviews, what are those meetings that are recurring and predictable, and what are the preferences of users.
Welcome to the Startup to Exit podcast, where we will bring you world-class entrepreneurs and VCs to share their hard-earned success stories and secrets. This podcast has been brought to you by TIE Seattle. TIE is a global nonprofit that focuses on fostering entrepreneurship. TIE Seattle offers a range of programs, including the Go Vertical Startup Creation Weekend, TIE Entrepreneur Institute, and the TIE Seattle Angel Network. We encourage you to become a TIE member so you can gain access to these great programs. To become a member, please visit www.seattle.tie.org.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our podcast from Startup to Exit. My name is Gary Shankar. I'm on the board of TIE Seattle. This is a TIE Seattle production. I am delighted to have as my co-host Shirish Nadkarni, and we have been hosting this podcast for a year. Shirish is an author and a serial entrepreneur, but now I should say he's a serial author because he has 2 books to his name. We shamelessly borrowed the title of his first book for our podcast, From Startup to Exit. The second book, Winner Take All, is also published. You can buy both the books where books are sold. We have been doing the generative AI series now for a few months, and it's very exciting to talk to our guest today, who Shirish will introduce, the first AI company born in AI, in the AI itself. So with that, I'll hand it over to Shirish to introduce our guest.
Thank you, Gary. I'd like to welcome Mike Fridgen, who's the managing director at Madrona Venture Labs. I've known Mike for a number of years. We have partnered with Madrona Venture Labs and TIE Seattle to offer the Go Vertical Startup Creation Weekend, which we ran for about 7 years or so, incubating numerous new ideas. Today, our discussion will be around a new generative AI application that MVL is launching called Otto. But before that, I'd like to quickly introduce Mike. Mike is a longtime veteran of Seattle. He was the CEO of Decide.com, a shopping decision engine that was acquired by eBay. And then he was the CEO of Farecast, one of the first travel services out there that allowed people to figure out which directions fares were headed so they could make an informed decision as to whether to buy the ticket at that point or to defer the decision to a later date. And then he became the managing director of Madrona Venture Labs, which was originally a spin-out from Madrona Ventures, but now has many other investors as well. And they incubate new companies and spin them out as they're doing with this company, Otto. So welcome, Mike.
Shirish, thank you so much for having me, Gary. Really appreciate being a part of this.
That's great. So before we get started, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how you were an entrepreneur first and then decided to join Madrona Venture Labs to incubate ideas typically from other entrepreneurs. So what made you decide to make that shift and how is it going so far?
Sure. So a little background. I'm a Seattle native. Started my entrepreneurial journey as an undergrad at the University of Washington. Started my first company in the late 90s. It was a student travel technology company. And it was really at the intersection of 2 major trends, this first company called TripHub. One was students were the largest demographic on the web at the time. And 2, travel was the leading e-commerce category. So you kind of looked at those forces coming together and launched this company. It was a company backed by Madrona and other investors. And that company went on to be acquired. From there, some twists and turns, but ended up back at another startup on the founding team of a company called Farecast that you mentioned. Hugh Crane was the CEO of that company, and it was exciting to join him. I was the product leader of the business, but we were doing some really interesting things. Oren Etzioni, who's a computer science professor at the University of Washington at the time, he went on to be the CEO and really the founding driver of AI2, and now a new company, True Media. So a real legend in the world of AI and entrepreneurship in the Pacific Northwest. But it was his initial technology and the work of many others that helped build a price prediction engine and travel search engine that was Farecast. The company was acquired by Microsoft. After a couple of years there, then I went on, as you mentioned, to Decide. This was taking some of the learnings around using data to inform better decision making and applying it to a much broader shopping category. And so we were helping consumers know what to buy, when to buy, ingesting massive amounts of review and pricing data. As you said, we sold that company to eBay after a couple of years of helping build up the local office here in the region. It was in Bellevue. Got the call from Madrona to say, hey, we want to invest more and really build on an initial start in the Madrona Venture Studio, which was an incubation arm for Madrona. And that's when I came in. So I've now been at Madrona Venture Labs for 9 years. We've built dozens of companies that have gone on to raise hundreds of millions in funding. Many of these companies are continue to grow and right here in our region. And so it's been amazing to be a part of that with a great team. Again, some of which you've had on your podcast, Jay Bartow in particular, who is the leading technologist on the team and responsible for a lot of the innovation coming out of our studio. So that's, if you think about, one chapter of the career was around founding, building as an entrepreneur and a founder. And the second chapter has been supporting founders, supercharging their efforts to help them be successful. And in terms of, the longstanding relationship with Madrona, it was really been 25 plus years now working with Madrona in some way. So they were investors in those 3 startups I mentioned. And then, of course, at the core, at the heart of what we're doing here in the Venture Studio.
That's great. So how does the model work at MVL? Do you incubate your own ideas, or do you typically like to partner with founders to incubate their ideas, or it's a combination of both?
Yeah, we're all about working with the most ambitious, driven, talented founders. And so we'll meet them wherever they are in that 0 to 1 process. And whether, they're coming up with the idea and we're supercharging their efforts, or we have an idea and we meet them along the way, and they come in and co-build with us through a process. Our reason for being is de-risking and fast tracking their success. We, as founder builders and in our community, we know it's all about a founder's ability to take an idea and learn and iterate, out execute the competition. And so that's going to take a lot of different, iterations and cycles to get there. And so, we really are all about putting the founders in the best possible position to have success and surround them with the right resources and support to get there. So, we have 3 different models for how we work with founders today. In some cases, we're co-building from the ground up. We call this our core model. We're really built to be incubating ideas and growing companies from the ground up. Again, sometimes our idea, sometimes their idea. Other times it's more acceleration. We meet a team that has some progress and we'll come around them and partner to move the company forward. And then in other cases, it's purely an investment. It's a small investment, generally the first money in, and it comes with us as a team advising and supporting the company, as it first gets going. But everything's very early, 0 to 1, formation, pre-seed. Madrona has a core fund that's seed and A, and then they have a growth fund beyond that. So there's a phrase we use that's used at Madrona, day one and for the long run commitment to founders. We're that very early formation pre-seed stages of company creation.
That's great. So let's talk about Otto. It's a very interesting idea. Tell us first what Otto is, and then how did the idea come about?
Yeah, sure. So Otto came about, we have a practice at MVL of every offsite, everyone needs to bring ideas to pitch. So, of course, we look at the portfolio and we do all the things you'd imagine a venture studio would do at an offsite. But a big part of it is living the same thing that the founders that we're meeting with are doing. So we pitch each other ideas. And about a year ago, Otto was pitched at an offsite. And then very quickly after it was pitched, because there was some momentum and the team rated it really strong in terms of thematically aligned, the right time to address it, and leveraging our strengths as a team. I mentioned my background, a couple travel startups, and Madrona has a clear history in travel, and Steve Singh has led multiple bets in that space, Spotnana, most recently Direct Travel, Troop. So we had a lot of domain depth as a venture firm and as a venture studio in that. So it made sense for us to do our work and validate and do our diligence to see if there was something there. So from there, we started talking to experts. We talked to over 50 people in the industry to understand why had previous attempts at an AI travel agent not work. I mean, there were a handful of companies that raised significant funding about a decade ago, and they just really never caught traction. So we just did a lot of work to learn. But specifically, what the idea is Otto is an AI travel agent for business. And specifically looking at the unmanaged business segment. So in the travel sector, you have leisure, you have business, and then within business, you have corporate programs that are specific platforms that users use to book their travel. But a big percentage, almost about half of that market, books their own travel. So we're looking to give them essentially an EA, a travel agent who will plan and book all of their business travel. So that's what the product does. And because of advancements in Gen AI and the ability to, pull a calendar data, look at previous trips, previous itineraries, matching up again itineraries with meetings on calendars to know what are those repeat sales meetings, quarterly reviews, what are those meetings that are recurring and predictable, and what are the preferences of users. These airlines, these hotels, within walking distance to the office, all these specifics, and get really smart about pre-planning, having, just like you would with an EA, authorizing the agent to book on your behalf and really going through all those steps and then leading to the moment of travel where, of course, there are all the kind of hiccups we've all experienced, flight delayed, you want a room upgrade, all these things that this AI agent can do in an automated way on your behalf to ensure you have the perfect trip. Mm-hmm. That's what Otto is going after, really providing you that expert travel agent who's doing all of the work to be proactive and automate those tasks that today, if you kind of think about it, we're still operating like we were decades ago. We're going to booking engines, we're entering all the same information, then we're going through transactional flows. These are tired processes, tired experiences, and this is a moment to reimagine that.
Right. So you did some validation, as you said, talking to experts. Did you do any validation with the actual end users themselves?
Absolutely.
To see what how comfortable they would feel. Because I plan my own. I'm not a business traveler anymore. I'm semi-retired, but I plan my own travel, and I like to look at the options and make decisions myself, etc. It may be hard for me to trust an AI agent, to do the right thing for me. So was there enough interest, obviously, from the end users?
Well, it's such a big part of what we do. I mean, I'll just back up a minute just to kind of talk about our validation process. So with any idea that we put through our process, most ideas are dying along the way in the validation process. We have 3 phases: validation, traction, building the product, and then fundraising. Mm-hmm. So within validation, there's 3 components: market, customer, investor. You're really hitting on, that customer component of what we do. And we spend a lot of time here, and it's probably the most important thing we do. Mm-hmm. And really where, again, most ideas go to die because, very quickly we aren't seeing that outlier signal, that pull from the customer that this is a major problem. These tired booking flows, going to the booking engine that you were at just last week and it doesn't remember anything about you, these same tired flows of going through it. We heard a lot of pain around both planning and buying, but also in-trip experience, making phone calls to change reservations. All those issues really arose through the conversation. And so, both experts and customer validated with clear signal that there was an opening in the market to address this. So many people are unhappy with, their business travel booking that they bypass. We call it in the industry going rogue. They bypass the existing corporate tool because it's so painful to work through. Mm-hmm. So there's a growing number of business travelers that are independent, booking their own travel, but then they're adding all that workload onto their own plates. And in an age of, this world where I think we see in the future where AI agents are completing these vertical tasks for us, it's the perfect scenario.
Right.
Because it is such an antiquated process, and we can, to a level of confidence and high value, perform these tasks.
Right. Now, why are you limiting yourself to one segment of even the business segment? Why not? I mean, take my example. I'm semi-retired. I'm traveling a lot. I'd love to use a tool like this. Once I, develop some trust and all that, I'd love to use. So, I mean, Expedia is not necessarily. They have, of course, a business, section, etc. But it's a tool for everyone. So why can't it be a tool for everyone?
Right. Yeah. I mean, a couple of reasons. One, the business travel sector and that segment of travel behaves differently. Mm-hmm. It's predictable. It's repeatable. Again, you think in a hybrid and remote world, people are coming back to HQ quarterly for mm-hmm. certain types of meetings. People, when on their calendar, are inputting their itineraries, their flights, or hotel information. It's all tied to a key meeting that's on the calendar. A lot of that data then we can ingest, mm-hmm. and we can start to build real memory around that and an understanding of not only you and your preferences, but your mm-hmm. travel patterns and behaviors. So and it's also for a more transactional kind of experience even for the user. You think about leisure travel, and there's a lot of joy in planning a family vacation to Italy and all the things that go in session after session. It's like 40 websites searched, I think, for the average family vacation before you're making a purchase. And those happens over weeks and months. Right. Not true if you're going to New York for your 5th sales meeting of the year. You're staying in a similar hotel, you're taking similar flights where you have your loyalty programs. It's just a different mindset and it's mm-hmm. a different motion. It's the right place for us to start. To be sure, once we really know consumers and their behaviors, and we can, there's all kinds of ideas we have to moving into leisure over time. Mm-hmm. But we're going to start with a segment that I think really benefits from our ability to bring that data in and apply it in this multi-agent system that we have envisioned.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So now, in terms of how you build this technology, I read somewhere that the generative AI model that you used primarily was GPT-4o. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Can you talk about the kind of the architecture of the solution, how it was built?
You bet. Yeah. I mean, this is a very modern AI application. So I think in a world where apps will be built in a much different way, where it's multiple agents playing a role in an orchestrated system to accomplish a complex task. Mm-hmm. So in our world, we are using large language models tied to different data sources. To give you an example, we have one agent that plays a role around calendar. It ingests calendar, as I said, itineraries, meetings, and it understands and makes sense of that to understand your preferences and your behaviors. We have another agent, which is an LLM tied to a travel API. It's pulling back real pricing and availability for flights and hotels and other travel components. And you can imagine multiple agents who are then all play different roles and have different prompts tied to them. We also have a personalized agent that understands not only long-term memory, the preferences of the past, but preferences and intent you've shown in the moment of indicating a trip or of directing a trip. So all these systems are coming together. And in terms of the models we're using, there's a lot of flexibility here. We'll have different models for different purposes. In some cases, we might have a performance objective. Other cases, a cost objective. Other cases, we might need a stronger model with more capability around, understanding again, these personalized data sets and being stronger in terms of how we articulate what we know about a user. So we have flexibility in what models we plug in for different use cases, and that'll really evolve over time. I see it being multi-model though. This is not a single model we'll use on the back. This will be a set of models that all play different roles in the system.
And those models may change. One day you may be using, GPT-4o. Another day you may be using Llama or something, depending on how your needs change. And
almost certainly, with the rate of change, that's almost certainly the only thing we know is that the exact set of models we're using today will evolve and change.
That's great. All right, let me turn it over to Gauri to continue the discussion. Over to you, Gauri.
Mike, it's interesting. You kind of said, modern AI company. I thought you were an AI-born company, but there's already in the 3 years that models have been around, there's already a, AI. We had to modernize how we think about language, ML and AI models. It's very interesting. So let me start with this premise, right? Post-COVID, would you say the segment you're going after has a pro-leisure approach to travel, meaning I go to headquarters, but I also extend it 2 days, or I go to someplace, I extend it 2-3 days, or stay 2-3 days to meet with my other colleagues, be around a meeting. So it's somewhat not, it used to be you left on a Monday, came back on a Wednesday, but then your leisure trip started on a Friday. Seems like that's blending. Would you guys consider that?
There's no question it's blending. There's a term in the industry, it's called bleisure, a mix of business and leisure, and that's very common today. And so, those are things we're thinking about in the experience and the interaction model of, planning and booking these trips. But yeah, I mean, you were speaking a bit about, modern AI and modern apps. I mean, we are, inventing as we go here on the edge of what, as we're learning and iterating on what's possible with this technology. Some people think we'll have an agent. Everyone will have a personal agent, right? That'll help us accomplish tasks in our lives. Almost like everyone has this supercharged EA in their life, not just for professional reasons, but for personal reasons. But when you think about these specific verticals, they're so complex, and they tap into deeper data sources that need real time around. I mean, flights and hotels are a great example. I mean, that data is not sitting in the models today. That's real pricing availability. It's pulled down in the moment. That changes in the moment. And so these more complex systems just require a more focused vertical execution. So you can imagine that there'll be an orchestrator personal agent to every human, but underneath that are a set of vertical agents that have deeper capabilities.
Got it. So let me sort of kind of build on that, right? So obviously there's Copilot from Microsoft for everything at the moment, or at least their offerings, right? You'd have to assume that the segment you're going after also has an overlap with the Copilot, right? They understand already a lot of things, meetings, calendars, travel patterns, etc. Could they not extend their own models or their own understanding and offer it, or do you see them not playing really vertical and instead being the horizontal layer, partnering with somebody like you?
Travel is a really fun use case, and a lot of companies, large companies, use travel as their demos.
Yeah.
What we find though, beyond the demo, beyond the big event, it's very tough to pull these off. The complete end to end, the planning, the transaction, all the pieces that go into making this work. So I absolutely believe it'll take more than what you see today to pull this off from the large the large tech players who are running these really fun demos. I think if you want to build an itinerary, sure. You want to plan a vacation and have one of these LLMs right alongside you in a co-pilot style to help you plan, sure, that's fine. But when it comes to all the way through to booking a complex multi-destination, multiple leg family trip to Italy, Co-pilots aren't there yet, and it'll be a while. And so that's the type of depth that we're going into at Otto. Again, not focused on leisure initially, but within this business travel segment, get that right, refine it, then scale it and bring it to more scenarios within travel.
So, just last question on the competitive thing, right? So let's just take two specific: Google and Expedia. They clearly are behemoths or legacy behemoths in the space. Google's got their own model. Expedia, I think, has announced some assistant of some kind. So how did you guys thread the needle saying, are they not addressing this particularly, or because they have Expedia being leisure centric and Google being just price centric or data centric? How did you thread this to pick this segment, the business segment? Because they have the data, they have behavior patterns over time and preferences, right, etc. Why should I depart and come to you?
If you look at online travel agencies, Expedia, there's others, they've had the data for decades.
Yeah.
If you go back in the Wayback Machine, go back 20 years, you're going to see the same experience. It's the same book, origination, destination, dates, same funnel.
Right.
Most of them still don't know you, and you've used them dozens and dozens of times over decades.
Right.
They hardly know you. They've had the data. We don't see personalization. We don't see innovation.
Right.
So for any startup there that's worried about that, just go execute. Go out execute. I mean, that it seems pretty clear. If you look at Google and you look at the major search engines, there's an innovator dilemma issue there around business model.
Yeah.
They don't make money by helping you with an efficient automated transaction. They make money by sending you to multiple places, right? Multiple travel websites. That's an ad driven. Same with the travel search engines, the kayaks and the rest. They don't make money by managing end to end the planning and the transaction piece.
Good. That's right. So
disruptive to their business model. And so how quick will they be to innovate and bring new travel experiences to market?
That's
again,
right.
We see the same referral model there with Google Travel today and other, not just Google. I mean, all search engines. It's a challenge.
So do you then see all the, say, the partners, airlines, hotels, all the players who actually provide these services to your customers as your partners? Do you see, I mean, they have this sort of an interesting relationship with OTAs. Like if you're Hilton, you have an interesting relationship with OTA because you have, or Google for them, because you're spending so much to attract your customer, while here you're delivering a customer, right? Because you're saying, hey, I've stayed at Hilton the whole time. I'm a Hilton Gold, so I'm going to steer you to Hilton. How does this relationship of inventory owners and Otto mix? Or are you going to let them come to you? You're going to scrape them? How have you guys thought of that?
We have access to travel APIs that will give access to pricing and availability. A major focus for suppliers, airlines, hotels, others, are to drive direct bookings. They've invested in more efficient APIs of their own. They'll create incentives and better user experiences to attract customers to book direct. So there's again, this has been decades movement to drive more bookings direct through suppliers. And we'll do a mix of dropping direct likely and pulling from travel APIs and booking through those sources. So it'll be, we'll optimize over time.
So what is then the business model?
I will say too, this is what's great about, the founding CEO of Otto is Michael Coleman. Background in the travel industry, had worked at Expedia on a chief product officer role for both consumer and on the business side, deep network and understanding. Also, Steve Singh is a very important part of this team. He's the exec chairman of the company. He's also leads investments like Spotnana and Troop and Direct Travel. So you think about all these pieces together from a data and distribution standpoint. There's some real advantages to the travel depth and the travel network that I think will definitely be unique for Otto as it moves forward.
Right. So what would be the business model, or what's the business model at the outset? Maybe it evolves, but at the outset, what do you, because unlikely you can get everybody to pay you just to, because they have a process that quote unquote is free, although they're trading their time in, and so it appears free. But what's the business model you guys are thinking about now?
I mean, some of the things you could imagine. I mean, this early, and Michael, the CEO, is going to set this strategy and make these decisions over time. But what you can imagine is, opportunities for subscription. You can see opportunities for transactional revenue. So this is a company that can generate revenue day one as it enters the market.
Right, right. You know what's interesting about this particular AI application is it actually is the connective tissue, right? I'm a power traveler, so the leisure kind, right? That travels for business, takes advantage of the leisure, and I know my preferences, right? And um,
And a
let's
smart
assume
system
eight.
too, right?
Pardon me?
You've done it enough that's all sitting there
Yeah, yeah,
in
exactly.
your email. That's all information that can be gleaned, and
Yeah,
LLM does such a nice job of summarizing that back to you in
yeah,
natural language in a way that sounds like, wow, this is a very educated system telling me how I travel. It's actually kind of amazing how well it does that.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and the thing that frustrating is now, if you take my last three trips, say in the last 2 months, right? The patterns are not that different. They're similar, right? I decide to go. I park in the same spot. I have the same amount of time before my flight. When I enter, my location is declared. I use, and then I use the same club in the
Mm-hmm.
airport, mostly the same airline, and you could see from my patterns that my preferences are non-stops as opposed to jump around, etc. And I have preferences of airlines, hotels, uh, prefer ride sharing apps over rental. I mean, there's a pattern that's emerging. Almost every time I have to repeat it every single time, start from scratch to go through this all. Even if I assume that I can get past that, when the thing breaks, that is flights delayed, something happens, then I have to start over again. And
That's
that's
right.
the part that's missing.
Right. I mean, we hear that in our customer interviews. Flight delay, but also meeting changes. I mean, oftentimes in a professional, cadence that you kind of go through, meetings change. Then all the travel plans need to change, and I had to go back in there and unwind them and rebook them. What a pain! Why are we doing that? No one should be doing that. Like,
Yeah,
we should not be going through these tired transactional booking engine flows.
yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, you kind of the flip of the green screen. I mean, that was empowering, right? A human agent would do all the work for us. They flipped it over, then it gave us the power to do it. But now we're doing all that work. I mean, hours and hours, planning trips,
Yeah,
and then the meeting gets canceled. And it's insane. So the world needs a better experience,
yeah,
and we're at a moment in time from a technology standpoint to give it a fresh new look, and that's
yeah.
what Michael and the team at Otto are doing.
At the time we are recording this, Hurricane Milton's threatening Florida. I'm just imagining the amount of business and whatever conference travel that's going to get canceled in the next 2 weeks because, Florida, the greatest destination for conference travel, is going to get canceled. I
Mm.
can't even imagine the number of things that's going to change. Do your partners see? I mean, when you picked this, right? You picked it from the user perspective, right? So now there's also the partners' perspective. We're all investing in some AI, etc. Do they see the value when you talk to them? Did they say, "Hey, we need somebody like this so we could have a better interaction with me, the traveler"? Because that's sort of the worst part at the moment. I mean, whether I call the airline or whether I call, it's always like you're in line. They have no, they can't tell the difference between me who has traveled for them 20 times versus somebody who traveled for the first time. So just
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. what do they see as an advantage working with you guys?
It depends on what partners we're talking about, right? So right now we're taking a user who travels for business, but they do their own booking. So they're
Yes,
going directly to the online agencies or the suppliers' websites to do the work.
sure,
So they're our partner essentially, right?
sure,
And we are using different methods to access that pricing availability and
sure,
complete the full loop for them.
sure.
Both the planning of here's, like you said, you have repeat behaviors. We're tapping into that to make
Yeah,
that planning efficient. And then we're closing the loop. We're doing the transaction.
yeah,
The user is literally authorizing, like you would a human EA, to do
yeah,
the booking and then
yeah,
providing all the information in your calendar and the itinerary nice and clean right to you. So the partner is the user. Now, in a world in the future where we start to blend kind of into the corporate side, then you could ask, hey, for corporate travel TMCs, travel management companies, is there an opportunity to partner there to make their experience more elegant interacting with their users? That's interesting. Over time, we might go up market into more corporate. We've
yeah.
talked about it, leisure, and moving down cross market into leisure travel. So I think we've got the right entry point. Often with startups, you find that wedge where you believe you can create an incredible experience and really gain momentum and habitual use with a customer, a high frequency business traveler who's traveling multiple times per month. They kind of live in these systems today, right? And we're going to take that all off their hand, make it faster, smarter, and a great trip, a really great trip experience. But over
Right.
time, we can move into these other markets as the technology improves and we learn more from our customer interactions.
Great. So let me sort of go up a level, right? You put on your MVL hat. So you said, hey, we listened to a lot of pitches within your team from outside, etc. So our
Yep.
audience, a lot of entrepreneurs out there, I mean, the democratization of AI, therefore the access, the LLMs, etc. Now lots of opportunities are coming about that you can go start companies. So, what would you advise entrepreneurs to go look for, other than the basics, right? Validation of idea. How do you find spaces that you have found, which from the outside looks very crowded? Hey, Expedia was going to do that for sure, or I'm using them as an example. Uh, you know what I mean? How would you advise an entrepreneur to say, AI, when you look at AI opportunities, how should they view uh, the opportunity itself as though they're coming to MVL to say, I have this? And if they were to pitch to you, what are the things you want them to look for before they even come to you so they can eliminate bad ideas?
Well, I'll tell you something that's compelling. It's compelling when the founder comes to the pitch with unique insight about a problem.
Mm,
Maybe they've lived it themselves as a consumer over a long period of time. Maybe they've lived in that industry and they've had unique access to problems and insights driven from being in the domain. So, oftentimes we talk about the importance of founder idea fit, but what comes from that that's unique and interesting is those insights. I mean, when we're thinking about things we worked on, we just talked about the depth and travel as a firm at Madrona and within our studio and as a people, the experiences we've had to give us unique insight into that. And that's pretty consistent. I mean, if I think about, what we're looking to do, we're looking, where does Seattle have strong talent? Where do we as operators have unique insights? Where does Madrona have an investment track record? Right? They have, judgment and they've made decisions and learned in these segments. And we're taking all of that to help hone our focus to give us an edge because, there's a lot of things you can do in this moment, and it's pretty quick to whip up a demo, a Gen AI demo. But really, what's your story for, how are you going to create an excellent product? What's your unique insight into the problem so you're positioning yourselves in a unique way? Those are the things that help founders really stand out and kind of become those outlier founders who, I think investors are excited to back.
So it's great to hear that the sort of the back to basics moment, right? Hey, what's your idea? Why you should do it? Are you the right person, team to do it? How are you going to go about it? What is it that you'll bring that others can't bring? I mean, these processes or these set of things are not unique to AI. It was there along the way. glad to hear that, because there's so many demos you see in Gen AI at the moment. All of them are compelling, but none of them are unclear. They are companies, so to speak.
Yeah, I think in this moment, I mean, you just hit on it, Gary. I think this understanding the role that LLMs play in solving the problem in a unique way that wasn't possible before. There is a lot of hype. There are a lot of, AI thrown around pretty casually in most pitches, most conversations. Breaking it down into, okay, here's the scenario. Here's what LLMs do really well and can do consistently and at a production level and scale level. Here's what in our product where it really plays a specific role. Because with us, like this travel scenario we're talking about, it's not the whole product. It plays a role. It is not the whole product. There are a lot of components to this. Now, it unlocks some things that weren't possible before around summarizing your profile, storing that memory, applying it to future trips. There's things it does that are really important that make it as the whole thing stick together in a modern, innovative experience we haven't seen before. But it's not, we built something on top of a core model, and there's so much more detail and nuance to the execution of the architecture and the product under the hood. And so I think having a deep understanding of that and be able to articulate that is really important in connecting the dots. Why, as a founder, why me, why this, but also what role does AI play on unlocking these new capabilities that customers really care about and willing to pay for?
Got it. Great. Shirish, back to you. This is Mike, fascinating to hear from a longtime founder, and you having started essentially in your dorm room, the first travel startup, looks like, right? Today you're back full circle doing another one of those, and there's some other Mike in a dorm room at UW thinking of this maybe, but it is fascinating to think that you stayed the course the whole time. Incredible. So, Shirish, back to you.
Thank you. Fascinating conversation. I guess one last question was, when do you expect Otto to launch? When can we look forward to trying it out?
Yeah, I'll leave that to Michael Goldman, the CEO, to announce. He's done incredible work. He's building the team, building the product. The team is iterating on it every single day. New builds, new capabilities. So I'll leave that to Michael to announce.
Okay, very good.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks again, Mike. It's delightful to talk to you today about Otto. I think it will have the same impact on the travel industry that Expedia had when it first launched, 25 years ago or more. So look forward to trying it out when it comes out, and happy to bring other ideas to MVL in the future as well.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast From Startup to Exit, brought to you by TIE Seattle. Assisting in production today are Isha Jain and Mini Verma. Please subscribe to our podcast and rate our podcast wherever you listen to them. Hope you enjoyed it.